Hello there, welcome to Wake Up to the Bible. I'm Daniel Kaplan. I'm here with my father, Dr. Kaplan, and we're going through the books of the Bible, Genesis through Deuteronomy, over the course of this year, a little bit every day. Today we are reading Exodus 10:12 through 23. I'm going to be reading from the Robert Alter translation, and then we will discuss what we have read. And the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the land of Egypt for the locust, that it may come up over the land of Egypt and consume all the grass of the land that the hail left behind." And Moses stretched out his staff over the land of Egypt, and the Lord drove an east wind into the land all that day and all the night. When it was morning, the east wind bore the locust, and the locust went up over all the land of Egypt and settled very heavy over all the territory of Egypt. Before it, there had never been locust like it, and after it, there never will be. And it covered the eye of the land, and the land went dark. And it consumed all the grass of the land, and every fruit of the tree that the hail had left, and nothing green in tree or in grass of the field was left in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh hastened to call to Moses and to Aaron, and he said, "I have offended before the Lord your God and before you, and now forgive, pray, my offense just this time, and entreat the Lord your God that he but take away from me this death." And he went out from Pharaoh's presence, and he entreated the Lord. And the Lord turned around a very strong west wind, and it bore off the locust and thrust it into the Sea of Reeds. Not a locust remained in all the territory of Egypt. And the Lord toughened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not send the Israelites off. And the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the heavens, that there be darkness over the land of Egypt, a darkness one can feel." And Moses stretched out his hand over the heavens, and there was pitch dark in all the land of Egypt 3 days. No one saw his fellow, and no one rose from where he was 3 days, but all the Israelites had light in their dwelling places. All right, so more excitement, as it were, some very disturbing and just very frightening plagues. I know some people are like, well, locusts, isn't that a little anticlimactic? But I think they're underestimating what locusts would be like if you think about this on this scale. If you've ever watched it, because you can go on YouTube and you can see what like locust swarms look like, and it is terrifying. And then not to mention the fact that, well, when it's all done, they basically are ruined. They don't. Woo! Excuse me. They're ruined, and food supply, that's a major, major problem. What are some of the thoughts that you have when you look over this section?
Normally one would read this, that Pharaoh says, "I've sinned." For some reason, Alter decides Pharaoh would say, "I've offended." Maybe because he figures Pharaoh's coming from a different, religious perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so the term in Hebrew normally would be thought of as sinning, but maybe in Pharaoh's case, that's, in effect, he's saying, "I've blown it. I've not behaved properly." The term means to miss the mark. So from his point of view, I guess you could say I've offended. So Robert Alter's trying to sort of subtly indicate Pharaoh's not theologically with Moses and Aaron.
Which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
It does make sense. Because if he's really, truly acknowledging sin, then it's like, okay, well, now he's starting to form a relationship with God, and that doesn't seem to be what's going on.
Right, yeah. But then it's amazing that even after that, he, once there's a recovery, then he again says no.
Yeah. Now, there is a parallel here with what's going to happen later with the crossing of the sea, right? Because later God is going to send a wind that's going to blow for a lengthy period of time, and it's going to part the waters, whereas here you have a wind that's coming and blowing for a lengthy period of time, and it's bringing locusts. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know if I had really thought of that before.
Takes them away too later.
Right, it takes them away, right? Yeah. An east wind and a west wind. Now, I can't remember what type of wind it is for the
I was thinking
for the splitting.
About World War II and the Japanese and the German leadership. They waited so long till they finally, surrendered. And of course, finally, Hitler killed himself.
Yeah.
And some of the others. But I think the Germans were counting on the last minute coming up with super weapons that would turn the tide. So in Pharaoh, even though he wants the plagues to stop, I guess he reconsiders when he thinks we're going to lose our labor force. So I guess he figured maybe these plagues, maybe they've run out of plagues, and now I can keep these people here. It's interesting to me that after that very devastating plague of locusts, that he would then still
Right.
be that stubborn.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah. Now, one thing that gets interesting with this is that you do not have acknowledgement of what's going on with everybody else. You had them earlier because you had the soothsayers, and then they were doing the miracles, and then they're like, no, we can't do it anymore, it's terrible, and then they just disappear. So what the general public in Egypt was thinking at this point is it's a complete mystery. Like, there's nothing here, which that's kind of interesting in of itself. You would have thought that they would start to end up with an insurrection themselves, because here they are getting destroyed and their ruler is just allowing it. So I just think that's interesting.
His advisors were telling him, stop this.
Yeah.
You're going too far. They may have reflected the general feeling at the time.
Yeah, maybe. So later we have the darkness, and we have the pitch dark. But what is interesting is where it says a darkness one can feel is how he translates it. That's such an interesting concept. Like, what exactly does that mean? What does that mean to feel darkness? Is it kind of just poetic, or is it literally like there is something weirdly supernatural about this? I mean, the one thing you could say is, well, if it's completely pitch black, right, that would almost kill you in of itself, because if you can't see anything, like, how do you even operate? So maybe when it says a darkness one can feel, there was like still a way to somewhat operate even within the darkness. I don't know. It's just an interesting way of putting it.
I think it's poetic language in a way. Just such thick darkness that
right,
it causes you to have sensations, physical sensations, because it's just so dark.
And people will tell you things like that. Sensory deprivation. You can put people in a completely dark room, and it'll kind of drive you crazy. You'll start to imagine things and all kinds of stuff, because we're just not used to being that.
That's what somebody said when I was a boy, and if you ever go to caverns, normally at some point they shut it off all the lights so you see what it's like in a cavern.
Yeah.
When I was a boy, this man said, I think it may have been in Howe Caverns up in New York State. But the man said, I forget how long he said it would take, but you'd go crazy. But I forget. He gave a certain period of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's like that with a lot of senses. You'll just go crazy. So ultimately, and here you have, it's so directly supernatural, right? If there was any question about anything up to this point, I feel like the darkness is just blatant, right? Because you could be like, okay, well, there was a disease that killed the cattle, and there was the sickness, and then the locust came in. But a darkness where it's completely pitch black for you and not for this other area, I mean, I don't know how you could possibly excuse that at this point. It just seems like...
Well, the hail was a turning point in a way, because you had ice and fire at the same time. That was a sort of
that was pretty supernatural too.
I think that was the seventh plague.
That's an interesting question. Did each plague serve? Did each plague serve as a warning for the next?
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of did. If you think about it, they do kind of nest on each other, right? Because the blood, and then the frogs come out of the river, and then it's like the bugs from that, and then you could even say the locusts, even they're making the land dark because they cover it, right? And so it's kind of a warning of what happens next. So that's interesting.
The darkness would also be the spiritual condition of that civilization.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Anything else come to mind on this section?
No, we don't want to necessarily dwell on plagues. Move on.
It's a little bit dark. All right, so we'll be back tomorrow to discuss more. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell, call up your friends, and we'll see you. Let me just
say one thing.
Oh, sure.
I don't mean by that we shouldn't really dig into to the scriptures and all scriptures.
Right. So but there is something to be said, Philippians 4 and everything. Like, you don't necessarily have to dwell on negativity too much. You should. I agree with your point. Don't feel bad. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.